Hello, and welcome back, and Happy New Year. Happy 2020 to the Yogi Roth Show. Hi, I'm your host, Yogi Roth, and today I'm fired up because I'm talking to one of my close friends who I get inspired by daily, like literally moment to moment with every post. And when we get to go deep on our conversations, whether it's over a cup of coffee or some good food at Erewhon in Venice Beach, or right now on a podcast, it's Jon Gordon. You know him, written now 20 books. So many bestsellers. I'm looking at one right now, the Stay Positive book that you just sent me, which is encouraging quotes and messages to really light you up with positive energy, man. Welcome back to the show. We do this to kick off every year, and I had to have you as the first one of 2020.
Yogi, I'm honored, and I just love this tradition and just the time we have to talk. It's the best.
Well, thank you very much. So the last 2 years, we've had conversations right around now. 2 years ago, you talked about seeking to create the impossible. Last year, you referenced your word of the year was expand, I believe. And this year, according to social media, your word of the year is, I don't want to steal your thunder.
Heart.
Heart. So we're going to get into that, but I want to back up 19 years. And I want you to tell me the origin story of when you decided to make a statement to yourself in the new year for your upcoming year, which has sent you off in this amazing trajectory in your life.
Yeah, it was 2001, and I lost my job during the dot-com crash. And so didn't have a job, no money coming in. And I had a restaurant that was about to open, a Moe's Southwest Grill franchise. And everything we had, we put into this restaurant. $20,000 in credit cards we had to use to put into this restaurant. So we had no money in the bank. Everything was in this Moe's, and it was about to open January 13th. And so on New Year's Day, I was so full of fear. I was like paralyzed by it that I decided to jump into the ocean. This was going to be my year of no fear, that I was not going to live in fear. I was going to go for it. And somehow, some way, I was going to trust that this was going to work out, even though it seemed like there's no way this could work out. Like, how are you going to make money when it takes a restaurant 6 months to usually make a profit, when you have no money in the bank, when it looks like your family's going to be in dire straits, your future is really in doubt, and yet I still was going to trust. I was going to have faith. And so I jumped in, and it was like this incredible feeling of peace, of joy, of faith, and of trust, knowing that the best was yet to come and that somehow, some way, it was going to work out. And that began this journey of faith in my life, and also just deciding to go for it. So every year now, I jump into the ocean, and my bank account is obviously a lot bigger now than it was then. And yet you still have new projects. You still have new goals, new desires. You still have things that you fear. And so every year I do this to remind myself, I am not going to allow fear to take control of my life. Fear of being perfect, fear of making a mistake, fear of letting people down. Yogi, we often think that the more success you have, the less fear you have. But I think you know this to be true, is that actually when you have more success, you have more fear because you don't want to lose what you have, and you have so much farther to fall. Even LeBron James, right, at the peak of his success, he was actually worried about failing during games. And so I know that I don't want to allow fear to control me. So this was a jump of faith.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of us that have, whether it's a New Year's resolution or your word of the year, you're a part of this community, right? I believe it's oneword.com. I think like you can literally put in your word of the year, or getoneword.com, excuse me, and that'll all be in the show notes. Like it's a thing, right? Where people kind of set an intention and go hard. The challenge, though, I think, is the trusting of it. Like, what are some skills and tips that you'd give that you used in the course of your last 19 years to trust it? Because we can all say it, like, I'm gonna go kick ass in the new year. I'm gonna go do X, Y, and Z. And then you're like, yeah, but I don't really believe I could do that because some stuff's really got to fall my way.
Yeah, I think back to this one word thing, getoneword.com. And my good friends have been doing this over 20 years now, Dan and Jimmy, and they taught me this I'd say about 9 years ago, I started doing it. And I think the one word is a great way to put front and center the word you want to live for this year. So that word allows you to take focus action. It allows you to live with meaning and mission and passion and purpose. And it helps you really live the word that you want to bring forth, because a word not lived has no power in it. So you can say the word, but living the word is what gives it power. You could say trust, but if you don't have trust, and you don't live with trust and you don't live with faith, then there's no power in it. And so a good friend of mine who you know as well, Erwin McManus, was talking about the other day. He's like, he doesn't understand how have people of faith sometimes are the most pessimistic people he knows.
Totally.
They're like, I'm a person of faith, and they're like, but I just think the world's falling apart. Yeah, but you're supposed to have faith. And so for me, it is about living that faith, allowing optimism to drive you, knowing, oh, I love the research from Duke University that optimists work harder, get paid more, and are more likely to succeed in business and sports. And the
Mm.
research shows that because they believe in a brighter and better future, they then take the actions necessary to create it. And I love that the researchers use the term deluded, that they actually delude themselves into believing that it's possible. And that's what it's all about. All right, we're not going to use the word delude, but faith and belief. And so because you believe, because you trust, you then take the actions every day and it shows up. And obviously, you know Pete Carroll, you wrote the book with him and you have a close relationship with him. He's the perfect example of that. He embodies that. He's like, we're going to do it. And somehow, some way, it's going to work out. And people are like, oh, that ain't going to happen. That can't work. No way. And sure enough, it works. And people go, oh, I want to be like that. Well,
Yeah.
are you willing to have the faith like that? Are you willing to have the optimism like that? Dabo Sweeney worked with Clemson now for the past 8 years. I have never met a person with more optimism, faith, and belief about what is possible. And you see the culmination of that into this incredible program that is now overtaken Alabama in terms of top programs. He believed, no one else did, and then he transferred his belief to others. So it's not like you can have a strategy to trust. I really do believe my word is heart this year because it all starts in the heart. It has to begin there. Like you have to feel this in your heart. You have to have a heart that truly trusts, that believes, that is open, that forgives, that allows, that receives. And when your heart is open to that, I really believe your life manifests that.
Wow. Okay, so how did you come about to this word? Like, was it just part of the natural evolution from 19 years ago, or did you put some time into it? Because I've talked to some people that are still figuring out their work. They're like, I got to put more time into it. I got to get quiet. And I mean, obviously, we live in a world that's full of noise and full of dopamine hits. That it's hard to get quiet unless you're in the ocean, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You're just away from anything. So curious your process of how to get to that one and how you got to that.
It takes time. You really have to just reflect. You have to think about it. For me, I pray on it and take walks. And around December 28th, 29th, I start thinking about, hey, what's my word for the year? What is going to be my word? And in years past, it just comes to me. It always comes. So last year was expand, and then it was connected before that, and it was forgive, it was still, it was rise, it was pray, it was serve, it was purpose was my first word. I knew I needed to have a greater purpose that year. My purpose needed to be greater than my challenges that year. So every year I've watched as my word has really shaped me in so many ways, and it's allowed me to focus on what matters most. And it's not a word that I choose, though. It's not just a good word. We believe that there is a God word that is meant for you, that there is a word that if you're open, that there is a word that you are meant to live this year. And that word will come if you're open. I've had friends who, aren't even maybe believers in God, and they said, you know what, I was open to it, and sure enough, the word just came. Like it's amazing how that happens. And they were blown away of how the word just showed up in their life when they were open to it. So that's what we tell people. Just be open. Just believe there's a word meant for you. Ask, what is that word that's meant for me? And when you're open, that word will show up. And so for me, I was walking and I literally look up in the clouds, and I have a picture. I could actually text it to you. And I saw a heart in the clouds. And it wasn't like a perfectly defined heart, but I could tell it was like sort of the shape of a heart. I'm like, wow, maybe my word is heart, or maybe it's love. And then the next couple of days, I kept on reading different devotionals and inspirational messages in these books that I was reading, and I kept on coming across love and heart over and over again. So I wasn't sure which one it was. Is it love? Is it heart? And then one day, it just like hit me. It's almost like a neon sign. I see it, and it was heart. And I knew that was my word for this year. And last year, I was in LA and I was walking, taking just a walk. It was New Year's Eve, and the word expand just came to me. boom, like it just came, and it almost just
Mm,
shows up like a download, and you just see it. I often say, the brain is the hardware, and consciousness is the software. It exists in the internet cloud, basically, of consciousness, and we're always downloading ideas and thoughts into our hardware. And so for me, it's like that's how it comes in. It's like a download, and I see it or I hear it, but it's not like an audible hearing, but it's like a knowing, oh, that's my word. And so it's never failed me. And then every year I know that I have to put that word into practice. So for heart, it's I want to live from the heart. I want to forgive from the heart. I want to lead with heart. I want to speak from the heart. I really I did that yesterday. I gave a talk in San Antonio to a large Fortune 500 company, and I just said when I got it there, I'm going to speak from the heart more. And I mean, it was incredible, the response, just speaking more from the heart. And I want to love God with all my heart. To me, I'm very spiritual and faithful, and I want to love more. And I feel like if I can connect more to that God's heart with my heart, like a conductor, the power will move through me rather than a resistor that relies on its own power. In electronics, a resistor only has limited power because it relies on its own electrons, whereas the conductor freely gives and receives of its electrons. So its power comes from the power that moves through it. So I want to be more of a conductor from the power moving through me rather than relying on my own heart, my own power.
yeah, that's strong. Like the first things that I think about is this idea of like breathing, right? And
Mm,
if you think about it, like how often do we say the phrase, man, I just need a breath. I just
yeah.
need to catch my breath. Like this year has been gnarly, right? And then I look at it in football terms. One of the first things we teach quarterbacks at the Elite 11, or when I talk to them on the Pac-12 network or on the West Coast, is I have them sit up and I teach them how to breathe. I did it to Chip Kelly's team at UCLA when I spoke to their team, or UW, or whatever the team is. I literally teach them how to breathe because so often, A, no one's taught like properly how to breathe through your diaphragm, but
Mm,
also to go through any sort of stressful moment, every bit of science would say you got to breathe, right? Like you need oxygen, you need blood to your limbs, like you need to breathe. You take it a step further. I got married in Bali over the summer, and we did breath work, which is basically a series of deep, heavy breathing that taps into your subconscious,
mm.
and it just fills your brain up with oxygen, right? It's like taking a hallucinogen is what it's been compared to, right? But it's obviously natural, and it taps into your subconscious, or one might even recognize like your conscious mind. And I just, as you were talking, I was thinking through like, yeah, like where I have always found greatest growth is when I go for a walk. I've always felt man is made to move, and we move through things. But it's only when I go for a walk without my phone with me, because that's like when I get lost in other countries and I don't have Wi-Fi on my phone. Like that doesn't happen anymore, but 3 years ago that was the case, right? Or now I walk around my home in Southern California and I'll walk to the beach, but no device. And while I'm breathing, my thoughts are like, to your point, like they're being powered through me, right? And it's like, okay, that thought like a cloud moves through me, and then that one moves, and then that one catches me. And that was my same exact process as I was figuring out my word for 2020 as well. And I just think breathing is, this thought that's so simple because we could take it for granted. And we often reference that we need another one versus like just put your feet on the ground. And I would bet in your talk yesterday and your talks in 2020 and beyond, like for you to sit and be where your feet are and say, I'm going to speak to you right from my heart today. That's got to be empowering for you and for your audience.
It is. And I love, by the way, when you're talking about breathing and breath work. It's so essential. Is that your word for the year, breath, or is what's your word, by the way?
Yeah, so I did a lot of work on this, and it was harder than it's been in years past. And I think it's just because I haven't had as much time to myself than I have in years past. Like married, we've got a little guy, like you're just kind of rolling. So like I really had to compete to create the space to think about it. And my wife's awesome because we both put a lot of time into it. And whether it was like, hey, I got to go surf for the next 45 minutes, and I used to surf for 90. You're cut in half, but at least you take some time to just let whatever comes to you. And I was going down the road of like focus, right? Because I always like have a bunch of ideas. And then I sat there and I was like, nah, Yogi, like I'm great at focusing. I mean, I've been able to focus my whole life. To me, it's about elevating. And that
Mm.
became my word of the year, which is elevate. And I just feel like my content or me as a parent or as a husband or me as just someone who's trying to experience life with great purpose as I'm trying to seek like new adventures with passion and curiosity, I want to elevate all those. So I'm not gonna. It's like the kid when when you were a youngster, like you had 100 different balls in your garage, potentially, because you played everything. Well, I can't play everything anymore, but I want my experiences with what I play, college football, this podcast with you, other creative endeavors, obviously being a father and a husband. Like I want to elevate those experiences. And what was really cool is when I look back on, I've been doing it since 2013, and I was with our mutual friend, Mike Gervais. We were in the ocean together and we started talking about our words of the year. And in 2013, we both were like, let's make it the year of go. And we held each other accountable. So 2013, it was a year ago. 14 was purpose. So I was going with purpose. 15 was curiosity. So I was going with great purpose, but I had to be really curious about the topic. 16 was passion. So then I had to do and follow my curiosity with incredible passion. 17 was instinct, which is really trusting myself as, I think athletes you're born with great instinct and you hone that. 18 was to seek. Like, all right, now I gotta pull up pages and uncover things. 19 was create. I wanted to create a family, create a home, create new experiences. And this year's Elevate. And what was really cool is that I didn't realize it at the time, but they've really built on each other. Where I create every year and put it on Instagram. Like I create a sentence with every one of those words, and it's just a reminder. Like one of my favorite words is maktub, which is Arabic for it is written. And it's this reminder to me that like, hey, my story is already written. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I just got to live it fully and trust that versus question when something happens. And that's kind of where I've netted out and why I came to that word.
I love that. I think about you picking the word create. Think about what you created last year.
Totally, bro.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
You created a whole new life last year that you're now living this year. And now this year you want to elevate. It really is amazing when you pick your word and then you really are intentional about it and open to it and the words that come. And then you look back and you see how each word is a chapter in the story of your life. That's the power of this. Like each word is really a chapter. I remember jumping in the ocean a number of years ago, and it was either surrender or joy was the word. Surrender or joy. And actually no, enjoy or surrender. And I jumped in, I hurt my knee, and then coming out, I'm like, I can't believe I just hurt my knee jumping in. Really? This is how I'm going to start the year? and I heard the words, you can't do it alone. And I knew in that moment I needed to surrender. And that was such a powerful year of surrender, letting all the stuff go that I was trying to always control and truly surrender. And I did. And it was amazing how my life changed from that. So every year, my word has really changed me. Last year, expand. I didn't know why expand came to me, but then I realized, oh, it's time to expand, to multiply myself, to be able to empower others because I had all these people that were working with me and I had developed them and helped them grow. So it was no longer about me going out doing events. I needed to also develop these people to do events. Well, we now have a whole team of people doing consulting, training, leadership development, workshops, all this great work they're going out to do. And we have expanded our team. We've expanded our impact. We did 4 training events last year, all sold out, Power Positive Leadership Training. And I saw how the word expand was to expand towards others to help them grow. It was incredible.
Yeah. Check all that out at jongordon.com, which will be in the show notes. I want to ask you, how do you remind yourself what your word is? Because I'm sure there are moments where you don't want to necessarily lead with your heart, but you want to lead with your mind or your frustrated state if you're delayed at an airport. Do you have a practice that you can share to, so you're conscious of your intention for the year?
It's as simple as putting it on your phone as your screensaver.
Oh.
You can also, a lot of times a friend will send me a wooden kind of thing with the word on the wood that you can put on your desk. I don't even know what you call it, but they'll send me something like that. And so it's just a way to put your word front and center. I think I've been doing it so long now that I'm pretty intentional on how this word guides my life. And so every day I'll be asking myself, how can I live with heart? How can I put this into practice? And I think that's the key question. once you pick up your word, once you know your word, then each day say, okay, how can I live this word? What are some practical ways to put it into practice? Like the year my word was serve, I knew I needed to serve people. I started at home doing laundry. I was serving my kids more. I made some practical steps there. And then on the road, I said, I'm going to start helping people with their bags on the planes. So I'm going to get
Mhm.
bags and put them into the overhead bin. So I always ask people if they need help putting them up and taking them down. I still do that to this day. And it all started with that word. So with heart, I'll just every day before I go to an event, I'll remember, John, speak from the heart. Try to live with more heart. And so it really is about maybe writing it down, identifying some practical ways you will put this into practice and live that word, putting it front and center where you'll see it. Could be on your computer, could be on your phone, could be on your desk, could be a little keychain, could be a little necklace, a wristband. Find some way to see that word on a daily basis, and then every day just live it.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. Yeah, we just literally this morning, Amy and I and my wife, we just got like we do like the My Intent bracelets,
Yes.
which I just kind of are cool and they're hip and they're fun to put on. But mine like where I was surprised where Elevate helped me. Like it helped me like I've just like ideated my next 3 to 5 years content wise, right? And like just went hard on it, like business plan, visuals, the whole thing. But my word really impacted me when things were like could go negative or go pessimistic early on in a word the 8th of January. And it was a great reminder for me, like, okay, I did a Rose Bowl TV show on the Pac-12 networks, and there was a segment that like, the right B-roll wasn't on or whatever it was, and I felt myself being like, damn, like you're about to get frustrated. And I was like, elevate, bro, elevate. And I just kind of like I almost levitated, or like politically, right? Like wherever you lean, it's not always the easiest of conversations, especially even now, like with what's going on in the world. And I'm just like, okay, elevate, ask questions, listen harder. And that's like, I think there's the other side of the coin of like the word of the year or the intention that we set of, using it to not just be like a focused touch point. We're mission minded. I'm going to this with my heart, or I'm gonna sell a show, or I'm gonna be vegan or lose 20 pounds, like whatever it is. But it's the dark side of it, when things can go the other way. This is the first year I recognize that with that my word kind of went both ways, and it was real conscious. I was like, okay, cool, elevate. Don't be frustrated. A word was misspelled, or that you didn't call somebody the exact like whatever it is. And I don't know, that was a new experience for me in the first 8 days of the year.
I love that because you can be like, my word is elevate, so I got to elevate the performance and we got to be better and we can't make these mistakes. So you can go with that mindset, or you can say, hey, to elevate and help others elevate, I need to coach them. I need to
Yeah.
help them improve. So I'm Yogi, so I'm going to do it in a positive way, and that's going to elevate them. One of my favorite sayings actually is when you appreciate, you elevate. So it's funny that you said that's your word, elevate, because I find when we appreciate, we elevate our mood, we elevate the people around us, and we elevate our life experience.
Yeah, so you referenced a study from Duke. I'll make sure we link that as well. There was one done at TCU, which is probably my favorite study in the world, and it talked about play. And I think play is one of the greatest gifts in the world. We see with Zane, he's almost 5. Everything is play. And then on the flip side of it, it's the thing that is lost
Mm,
most quickly as we get older. We can't play anymore. I gotta work. I gotta grind. I stay on my grind. Like I hate the word grind because there's always like it's not fun,
right.
Like where like I love like the prep, right? I could quote unquote grind as hard as anybody, but to me it's like the joy in the uncovering of a new whatever story in college football or a way a team is beating a certain coverage that I could talk about on game day. Anyway, the study says that if you do anything, right? Let's just say you want to be a better chef, right? It'll take you about 400 repetitions to get good at being a chef. I'm not saying you're not, no, not disparaging your kitchen skills, John. I'm sure you're great. Mine are
I don't
very
have
average.
mine
Uh,
too.
yeah. So, all right. So we both agree we have average kitchen skills at best. So if we practice making whatever meal our family loves, it's going to take about 400 times for us to really crush it. But if we do it with play and we do it with joy, it'll take 10 to 20 reps to gain mastery or begin the road towards it. And when I read that, I was like, I called Kevin Carroll, our mutual friend, who speaks about the power of play all over the world, and of course
Oh
he already
yeah.
knew it. But I was just like, whoa! Like if you walked into your next speech off of a red eye and back to back to back days and put a smile on, so, I'm gonna lead with my heart, right? I'm gonna play. I'm gonna have fun today. You're gonna crush it. Versus, man, I'm so tired. I needed 3 cups of coffee today. Oh my God, just get through this. It's just. I thought it was really cool because to say that like we might all be 8 for 8 right now or 10 for 10 by the time you listen to this in terms of days of the year where you kicked ass and done great, but there's gonna be the times that are like a little brutal or just average. And I think like having some keys of like, you know what? Like you said with Dabo or Pete, Pete would always say, I expect something great to happen next. He would say that after Marshawn Lynch didn't, get the ball in the Super Bowl, or if they lost a game, or if they missed on a third, he'd be like, okay, cool, we get it back. We're going to roll. And that optimism, that's a trained trait that I think is beneficial for all of us as we kick off 2020.
Totally. And is Pete someone though who is more naturally positive though, or do you think he developed that positivity?
No, he's natural. He learned it as a kid. He said his mom always taught him like, "Hey, Pete, always know that something great is just about to happen." And the thing that was cool with his culture in Seattle or at SC, I'm picking Dabo. I'm going to ask you at the end like our thoughts here on the championship game coming up. But what it did is it transformed a culture and a profession that's pretty cynical. Like coaches are pretty much about like, oh man, this guy, he can't do that, or he didn't do this, or we got to get better here. And I can remember Pete at SC would come and be like, man, we're gonna be really good. And I remember watching the tape being like, I don't think we're very good right now. But yeah, we're gonna be all right. And he just had that mindset. And what everyone to a man would say by him, whether they got let go or thrived off of from learning him, they'd say Pete's uncommonly consistent. And it's with his optimism. It's not fake, it's not false, it's not a bunch of smiles with no depth. It is rooted and grounded in a deep philosophical belief.
I love that. And realism is looking at the way things are. And I believe Pete sees what they can become, what these players could become. So a lot of people say, oh, that player's not very good. He says, no, this is what this player is going to become when he improves, when he gets better, when he grows, when he becomes part of our system and our culture. And so I believe being an optimist doesn't mean that you see the world through rose-colored glasses. It means that you have the power to overcome the thorns. You can
Mm.
overcome the adversity. You can overcome the obstacles and the challenges and the negativity to become all that you're meant to be. So we're talking about play. Yeah, when you're playing, you're going to be better. When you're having fun, you're going to get better. When you love it, you will improve and get better because you love it. I love when Pavarotti was asked about his discipline. They said, you have such amazing discipline. Like, where does that come from? He said, people think it's discipline. It's not discipline, it's devotion. Because he was so devoted to his craft, because he loved it so much. It wasn't discipline. If you have to be disciplined and make yourself disciplined and you don't really love it, you'll never be as great as you can be, and you'll always be fighting and swimming against the current rather than flowing with it. When you're doing something you love and in your sweet spot, and it's something that you want to wake up doing every day, and you're having fun doing it, then you're going to be so much better at it, and you're going to find your greatness with it. A good friend of mine worked on Wall Street, and they would answer the phones all the time, doing trades and so forth. And he decided to play at work, and he was going to answer the phone quicker than anybody in the office. That was his goal. And so throughout the day, he just said, I'm gonna pick up the phone as quick as I could. And that little play made his day much more productive and made him much more successful. Just something as simple as that.
Wow, I love that. All right, I got two more for you, but something simple is also a big part of this podcast, which is Kona Red Coffee. I'll make sure I send you some, John. It's the presenting sponsor of the Yogi Ross show. Check it out
Nice.
at KonaRed.com. Dude, it's awesome. It's both love Hawaii. It is grown, handpicked there. They got everything you can imagine. Check it out at KonaRed.com. And I believe coffee is a catalyst to conversation. I'm sipping on it now, and you can get it at all of your local stores. And if you go to KonaRed.com, use Yogi20 to get 20% off. So that being said, you've been in and continue to be in really amazing locker rooms. And the audience of this show is a huge college football audience. You've talked to Sean McVay. I've been with you there. You've talked to Chip Kelly. Every time I'm in his office, I see your books on like multiple coaches' desks, and I get so proud and so excited for that. And you just referenced Dabo Sweeney. What do you see as a trait among those guys as something similar, right? Their personalities are all different, right? Their age ranges are all different. Their career paths are all different. But I'm curious, if you look at those three guys that you've been around, what have you noticed from being in the facilities and talking to the teams and gleaning some insights of how they set intentions for their year and their teams and how they're reflected by the players?
Well, also Coach Cristobal with Oregon, right?
Yeah, good call. Yeah.
Worked with them and Coach Peterson the year before, Washington. Yeah, I was joking, Yogi, that I worked with Washington 2 years ago. They made it to the Rose Bowl. This year, Oregon, they made it to the Rose Bowl. So I said, if you want to go to the Rose Bowl next year, give me a call.
Done.
So
We're pumping that out on this. Agreed.
joking, of course. I know I'm not the factor, but maybe a good luck charm. But then Ryan Leaf, he responded. He said, "Hey, I spoke to those same teams the same year as you did." I go, "Oh, maybe you're the reason why they went to the Rose Bowl." So had some fun with that. But with the characteristics of all these great coaches is they know what kind of culture they want to build. They know what they stand for. They know their culture. They know the people that fit their culture, the coaching staff and the players, because you have to have the right player that fits you and your culture and your team. And then they're able to execute on that culture. And so Dabo knows who a Clemson kid is. And he's building towards that kid. Like this year, they had the number one recruiting class. And Dabo told me just the other day, he said, we got the number one recruiting class. We weren't striving for that. We were just striving for our kind of kid. But it just so happened that our kind of kid were also the best players in their positions this year and the ones that agreed to come here. So it just worked out that way. He said, but we were winning championships with, maybe top 9 recruiting class, top 10, not number one. So they were still winning with finding their kids, building it into their system. And I think that's a huge part of it. I mean, I played lacrosse at Cornell University, and we were a powerhouse program when I got there. And then years later, we became a powerhouse again. Unfortunately, we lost our power status my senior year, and that began a downfall of the program. And when they regained their power status, I was talking to the coach, Jeff Tambroni at the time. I said, what have you done? What made Cornell a powerhouse again? He said, we know the kind of kid we're recruiting. We know the Cornell kid. And we used to recruit 20 to 30 kids. Now we recruit 10 to 12. And we tell them, it's really cold at Cornell. If you don't like the cold, this is not a place for you. We tell them you're going to train like a football player if you come here. You're going to have to be tough as nails. If you're not willing to train like that, this is not the right place for you. They're actually trying to weed out kids. And it's funny, Dabo does the same thing. Hey, if you come here, I'm not guaranteeing you a starter position. You're going to have to earn everything you get here. If this is not the right place for you, then don't come. So literally they try to weed out those kids. But they also know that if they come, they're going to be a part of something special and different that makes their program different. And I would say I haven't had these conversations with Mario, but I'm sure he's doing the same thing at Oregon as well.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. I've gotten to know him and the program well, just covered the Rose Bowl, and they're coming. Like, look out. The way that they're recruiting and developing, it's legit. And what I'm so excited to watch there is what you referenced at Clemson, what we had at SC, which is what Bill Walsh coined a competitive cauldron. And you create an environment where guys say, like, yeah, I think I'm the best receiver. Okay, then come here and prove it. Because you're going to compete against the best receivers in the meeting room and against the best DBs every day. What do you got? And I remember at SC when we did that, and Clemson has that. Chris developed an element of that at Washington. I think Mario has that with the way they've recruited. And then the next phase of it, which we haven't seen yet from Oregon, which will happen this year, is how do you manage it? And that to me, I think, is the fun, because you're right. Like, what I love about Dabo, I'll screw up the stat, but something along the lines of, I think, over 80 players play per game for them on average, right? So what does that mean? That means it's a healthy team, because everybody puts in the same amount of time, same amount of work. Some guys are first round draft picks. Some guys will never play after Clemson. Some guys will only play on kickoff return. Some guys will start every down. Some guys will be Trevor Lawrence. But I've always felt you earn the right to play or you earn the right to sit. And when you're a culture that's highly competitive, I think it's something that Lane learned in his journey as a coach from SC to where he is now at Ole Miss, of like making sure you touch all 105 guys and they know you and you know them, versus, hey, we got to win. Like, you're my dude. I'm going to keep feeding you the rock. And that culture eventually starts to fall apart if it's not healthy. And I have never been around Dabo, but David Shaw raves about him, and David Shaw to me is like the godfather of college football, the Stanford head coach, and everybody that you reference is such high class that I'm not surprised that you said that was the commonality.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And we have to say one thing about Clemson too. They were getting a lot of flack for not playing anyone, is what they say, right?
Yeah,
But think about those guys going against each other every day in
yeah, come
practice.
on,
So every day in practice, you are playing top NFL talent every day because they got some DBs that are great and the receivers are going at it every day. Same thing at SC. I think people underestimate who you're practicing against every single day. And I think when you're playing against the best every day, it elevates your game that when you go against another team, that DB on the other team is not as good as the one you're going against every day. So guess what? It's now easier.
hmm
And I
yeah,
really believe that's a big factor in a team getting stronger, getting better, and rising the tide of right. It raises the level of all ships when you bring great talent in, you now elevate your word elevate, right? You elevate
yeah,
everyone around you. So the great teams do that and they have talent and then they're competing every day, but they're also having fun. Like you go to Clemson, it is fun. And it's also a family atmosphere, which is what strikes me most about that culture. They are so family focused that every Wednesday night they get together as a program and they all have dinner. The wives come in from the coaches' wives. They got the kids come. You go to practice every day, you'll see tons of kids around practice, just on the sidelines watching practice, hanging out, playing, jumping around. It's such a family feel that when you come there, you feel like you're part of a bigger family. And a lot of people talk about, hey, we want to be a family or we are a family, but no, there you really are a family. And I got to say, being with Oregon, I felt this family feel there as well that I did not feel in a lot of places. They had a very similar kind of family feel that felt very different.
yeah. No, I'm with you there. I think what you referenced about playing best versus best, we had it at SC when the players believe it. Right? Every coach says it. It's going to be the hardest place in the world to practice. This practice field's the mecca for talent. But when the players believe it, because they know, no offense to my Pitt Panthers, but Clemson knows that their defense is better than the defense they play when they face Pitt or NC State or Duke or North Carolina or Florida State or whoever in the ACC. We knew the same thing back in the Pac-10. And that's where I think Oregon's getting. All right, so before we let you go, last thing, man. You're not necessarily a college football analyst by trade, but I'm going to make you be one right now. What do you think? Like we've got some of the best stories in the history of the game, right? You got a team that is repeating. I don't think anybody gives that enough respect to win 2 years in a row and not have a loss, even longer than that, with what Clemson has done. Like that's just crazy when you think about them showing up every week. You had Ed Orgeron, hasn't gotten a head job, gets his break, brings in the transfer quarterback Joe Burrow, who wins the Heisman. It's in New Orleans. They're from obviously Louisiana. What are your thoughts about the game, and what are you most looking forward to watching?
I'm excited about this game, and I'm just glad Alabama's not in it. So I'm sorry, Alabama, but that's it's like all right, this is exciting to have a different matchup. Coach O is obviously an incredible coach. So happy for him and what he's been able to accomplish there. It shows a coach transformed himself over the years to become the kind of coach that could actually lead this program in this way and did it differently, and you could tell that he's really grown as a coach, and I love the program he's built, and you could tell the love he has for Joe in response. I mean, you saw that speech with the tears. That doesn't happen by accident. So that's what struck me most was the heart and the love that these guys had. I do think Joe Barrows is going to play amazing. I think Trevor's going to play great. I think it's going to be a battle that goes back and forth. I ultimately, and again, I could be wrong, I do think Clemson is going to win. And I think they're going to win because I think that they are a more connected team. I think they're a team that is more connected together. And you might say, well, John, you don't know LSU. No, I don't. But I do know that Clemson plays for each other. And that's what makes them so successful. That's why they keep fighting it. They kept fighting with Ohio State. They never gave up. And I do believe that's going to be a differentiating factor in this game. I think LSU's got a lot of talent. I think they're going to do really well. And I think Clemson's young. Clemson is very young on the defensive line. They're young overall as a team. Dabo talked about they play the most freshmen out of any team, in college football, I believe, this year. And so I think as a result of their youth, that could be the one thing that hurts them. But I do believe that they have experience in the right places, and Trevor's will to win, I think, won't let this team give up.
Yeah.
So, and again, I could be saying that just because I'm a Clemson fan, right? And again, I might be biased in that way. I think LSU is a very good team, and if they won, I wouldn't be surprised. But I do think Clemson, ultimately, the team factor of playing together as a team, which is their whole approach, I think is going to be a differentiating factor.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be an awesome game, and I'm with you. Like, I'm glad Bama's out, and I got a bunch of reasons why I think college football needs to have a uniform scheduling, but that's another podcast. But I'm with you. My head says LSU. Part of my heart says LSU. You look at their offensive coordinator and the tragedy that happened to him the day of
Oh
the
my
SEC
God.
title game.
Yeah.
Like, I remember Joe Burrow from high school at the Elite 11. I'm not a fan of every quarterback transferring after their freshman year, but after your third year or fourth year when you're not playing, I commend you for it. And I like what he did.
Totally.
He's playing. I think he's a number one pick. He's a
Definitely.
beast. And then I go to the flip side and knowing Trevor since high school and watching this program, and they just remind me of SC back when I was there. My gut says Clemson. So as an athlete, I'm going with my gut. I'm going with Clemson for the win. I picked him in the semis. I'm gonna pick him again in the title.
Wow, that's pretty cool. You see it that way. Joe Burrows reminds me of Tom Brady with wheels. I mean,
Amen.
yeah, he seems to have that mental makeup. He's tough as nails, and yet he's fast and elusive. So I think he's gonna be a great pro. How wild that he's gonna go to Cincinnati, and he's from
Totally.
Ohio. I mean, isn't that a perfect fit?
Hey, mock tub, right? Like, it's written. Like, you think about it, you just got to live it out, man. Like, it is. I remember him in line two at the Elite 11, and he was committed to Ohio State. We were at Ohio State's campus, and he was playing okay. And there's basically like four lines. Line one is kind of like the better guys. Line two is line two, and it's not that way anymore. But I sense his frustration, and I remember watching it, and I was like, oh boy, this is gonna be interesting. And yeah, and then never heard about him until a couple years later. Now he won the Heisman. And there's something to be said for being driven. And look at this guy, the way he acts. It's not about him. Like, I just think in this era, there's been two Heisman speeches that have changed 15 and 16-year-olds. One was Marcus Mariota, and one was Joe Burrow,
Mm.
and they were beautiful.
Yeah, and it's that chip on the shoulder that makes you so successful, no doubt about it. With Drew Brees had it and still has it, I think. Tom Brady still has it. It's like they were overlooked at one point in their life and it never leaves you. And I think it's like that for me too. I'm sure you were a walk on, right? And weren't you a walk on early
Yeah,
on?
oh yeah,
Yeah. And so I mean, I think you have that mentality. Like I wasn't highly recruited for lacrosse, mostly for football actually. And I decided to go to Cornell to play lacrosse. It was the one school that recruited me there, and I went there with something to prove. And I think I felt like I had to prove something my entire life in sports. And then when I wrote my book, The Energy Bus, rejected by 30 publishers, I still had something to prove. And so even to this day, when I'm writing my 20th, I don't have this mindset that I am established, that I've arrived, that, I'm successful. I literally feel like I still have something to prove with every book, with every talk. It's something that I don't think ever leaves you. And I think the great ones have that. There's an element that they have in them. And I think that it's not a bad thing. I think actually their past and what they went through ultimately prepares them to create more success in the future. And it's part of that journey that we must all go through.
amen, man. That's so good. All right, best way to connect with you is what?
JonGordon.com, JON Gordon.com, or at Jon Gordon 11 on Instagram or Twitter, at JON Gordon 11 on Instagram and Twitter.
I love it, man. I can't wait to watch how this year in your heart plays out. I'm excited for you.
Thanks, Yogi. I appreciate it. I can't wait to see the way you elevate. I know that you created last year, and now the elevation is going to happen this year. I'm scared to see. I mean, I'm not scared. I'm excited and scared at the same time. Like it's gonna, with elevation, like look out. It's gonna take off. Something big's coming. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, fired up for it. All right, that's Jon Gordon. I'm Yogi Roth. For all podcasts, just go to yogiroth.com. Of course, subscribe, rate, review. Leave a review on this one. It's Jon Gordon, for crying out loud. And share with your friends and let us know your words of the year. I know John and I both love getting those types of conversations. So for John, I'm Yogi. Happy 2020 with whatever word or phrase you have chosen. Peace.